Let's watch absolute clown Matt Walsh getting his anti-gay marriage argument completely dissected by Jillian Michaels, who isn't even naturally a political commentator, which just adds to the hilarious effect of this all, as she's just through sheer common sense able to suss out the parts of his arguments that simply just don't make any sense. And Matt Walsh, after getting the slightest of pushback, is just unable to respond or defend his position. So let's see what was said first and jump back in with the context needed.
When a society abandons what has always been recognized as the definition and meaning and purpose of the marital union, when they abandon what marriage is, that has vast implications for society. And
Then you're, because I'm saying everything I find is matrimony or wedlock, culturally, often legally recognized union between two people called spouses. It establishes rights and obligations between them, as well as them and their children, if any, between them and their in-laws. What is the definition that you have that's outside of what's in the dictionary? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is it religious? And then which religion? Because there's different definitions of marriage per polygamy, this common law marriage, group marriage. I mean, that's
because marriage codifies, protects, sanctifies the inherently procreative union of a man and a woman.
I mean, you love to see this. And the best part of this is Matt Walsh himself will try to use dictionary definitions as a gotcha when he's doing, anti-trans debates. But here he is himself trying to create his own personal meaning to a word and then say everybody else has to adhere to it. Where when we read the definition, it has nothing at all to do with the things he's saying here in this clip. And it's hilarious that she reads it directly to him and it results in him stumbling and just essentially repeating himself without explaining or defending the fact that he was wrong. But she is exactly right. I mean, his definition is clearly religious. The problem with this is we're a secular country. Not everyone believes his religion. And why should they be excluded from something or taking part in a thing because an imaginary guy in the sky told Matt Walsh that it's bad? It's pretty anti-American to think you can force your Christian values onto others in a secular state. If you're un-American, maybe you should leave America. Isn't that what these guys say? I mean, that imaginary guy in the sky also says adultery and theft is bad, but Matt Walsh openly supports and voted for Trump, who raped a woman and committed fraud. So it's like, if you're going to pick and choose what part you listen to, then so am I. And also, no, a union between a man and a woman isn't inherently procreative. To him, it could be. I mean, a man and a woman could just not want to have kids. Either could be actually physically unable to have kids. They could be just sexually inactive for one reason or the other. I mean, it's, again, literally just his view that he wants to force on everyone else because he's a Christo-fascist.
It was still the recognition of this basic deep truth that I'm talking about, even in societies that practice polygamy. In fact, for them, procreation was so much the point that that's part of the reason why they had polygamy, was so they could create even more kids. And if you go back far enough in time into human history, when there weren't that many people on Earth,
why be married if it's all about having kids?
I mean, well, you could argue, if you go back far enough in history, you could argue that that way back when that polygamy served a purpose and like populating the earth and we don't, so but it's always been that fundamental purpose. There has never been a society until ours right now that has said, well, actually marriage has nothing to do with procreation at all. That society has never existed, unless you can think of an example.
No, there's rights that pertain to the kids, but my ex procreated, but also I adopted a kid. We adopted a kid. And what happens to all these protections then if you hypothetically got your way?
Well, I mean, you'd have tough individual situations like that. I don't deny it.
I mean, come on. How does anyone take this guy serious? You would think with all the speeches, all the debates, all the appearances he does, he would be able to articulate himself, but at the most simple pushback of his view, he folds. Also, people get multiple wives so they could procreate. That's like, what? I mean, this guy literally exists in the realm where you can just say things. And if they just make sense to you, if it sounds good to you, that's enough proof to say it's real. Like, he could never present any evidence to back up this claim. I would never make a claim that I couldn't present evidence to back up. The argument he's making here would also mean if a man and a woman was unable to procreate, then they would not be allowed to marry, whether they're in a same-sex relationship or not. Women born without the ability to give birth would be prevented from marrying a man just as well. I mean, that's the question I would ask, because it either exposes the insanity in his position, meaning it would exclude people from taking part in something in society based off how they were born, which we've seen the slippery slope of when we do this in history, or it would expose the hypocrisy in that he only wants this applied to same-sex couples, so obviously it's just homophobia. And then on the flip side of this, how do we ensure the focus of marriage is our procreation? Do we enact fines? Are we going to fine people in marriages without babies? Are we going to criminalize it? Are we sending women to jail if they aren't giving birth and they're married? Like, this is something that makes no sense. It's never something we could actually enact or ensure. And it's never been the purpose or meaning of marriage outside of that of the diluted worldview of Christians, who also justify things like slavery and genocide. So, like, why the would I listen to you?
When you allow for the institution of marriage to be essentially disbanded, as it has been in this country,
I don't
And-
see that, Matt.
any effort to
I don't see that allowing people to be a part of something that is special. I don't see how that disbands it. I see
how
it
would you
as,
how would you define marriage?
well, I mean, I would go with these literal definitions. So, the state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. That is literally how I define it. And also called matrimony or wedlock, culturally and often legally recognized union between two people called spouses. And yes, I know historically the spouses were man and woman, but it establishes rights and obligations between them, as well as between them and their children.
Do you recognize at least that removing the family, removing the creation of children from the definition entirely means
about
that
the couples that
means that
don't
you have a
have
it means that you have
kids?
it means you have a definition there that is, would you at least recognize that
Okay.
it is unprecedented in the history of human civilization?
Oh my God, this guy cannot debate at all. I promise I would eat him alive if we ever spoke about anything. This is the arguments of bigotry. They literally mean nothing. Like, these arguments mean zero, right? White racists in the 40s would have, in the same vein, said, I consider integrating schools to be disbanding them, right? Or allowing blacks in the bathroom to be disbanding them. At one point, ending slavery was unprecedented. Are we then arguing that these are legitimate reasons slavery and segregation should have stuck around? Now, this guy probably would say that because he's a bigot, right? But no, because again, these arguments literally mean nothing except to justify bigotry in the eyes of bigotry, right? Not even at a surface level do these defend the position he's trying to make. He's just so incredibly bad at defending bigotry that it's obvious he's a grifter. Like, it doesn't even feel real. He doesn't even have the passion to defend these points. Marriage as an institution in no way mentions requiring procreation, and it never has. Even in being a man and a woman, that doesn't ensure procreation, and never has. His worldview, again, would lead to things like fines or prison sentences for couples who do not have kids, or preventing those from marrying who are unable to give birth. It would be done on no other basis than religious principle, of which we as a nation are founded on secular principle. It would be inherently unconstitutional and against the fabric of what makes America America. Yet these people convince themselves that they're the patriots and they're the ones that love this country. Like, no, you guys loved the bigotry this country represented for like centuries that has been fading away, and you guys have been grasping onto in any way to keep for the last 6 or 7 decades. Let's be so for real about it.